Kitty is looking at me. She's very curious what I'm doing. You'd think after seeing so many videos, she wouldn't be that surprised. Hey guys, it's Bree. I wanted to talk to you because I'm really pretty excited. I got review copies of Cereal Box's The Witch Who Came In From the Cold, and I wanted to talk to you about it. So for those of you who don't know what Cereal Box is, it's a kind of weekly installation into a series. So it'll be an overarching story, and every week a new author or a different author will essentially put in a chapter in this story. And over time, their story becomes like a big, whole, cohesive tale. The Witch Who Came In From the Cold is a story about Cold War Prague, basically. It has a main character named Tanya and another main character named Gabe. And essentially they are on opposite sides of the Cold War. Tanya works for the KGB, Gabe works for the CIA. But they're thrown together because of this greater war. This war between what's called the Acolytes of Ice and the Acolytes of Fire. Basically people who control magic in the world and who run a more secretive operation than the CIA or KGB. Neither really knows of each other's existence before the story, and they are, I wouldn't quite call it tossed together. They find one another in this story and kind of have to interact with one another through a series of events that are kind of chaotic and confusing for both of them. All the while, of course, having to deal with Cold War politics and spy tactics and all sorts of cool, amazing, like, Cold War era stuff. So the series is interesting in a number of different ways. The plot is fast-paced, the characters are interesting and engaging. And on top of that, you get to kind of sample works from a variety of different authors. As far as the characters go, Tanya, the main female lead, is kind of spunky and, like, really engaged and active in this cause. Gabe, on the other hand, is really new to it. And so they're kind of walking this fine line between what does one another know and eventually realizing that neither of them knows nearly as much as they should. There's all sorts of kind of spy things going on. So they're meeting one another at different consortiums and social events where they're not technically like really supposed to know one another. They know one another because the KGB and the CIA have dossiers on each other, but they don't really know one another personally. And of course, one of the characters, Gabe, has this kind of magical medical emergency. There are a lot of things to like about this story. The characters are engaging, there's a fast-paced plot, but also I really enjoy the format of it. So there's a new, basically like 30-40 pages released every week, which for me is just about the right size. It's like a bite-sized portion of a story. Just enough to keep me engaged for an hour, but not so much that I have to feel committed. And on top of that, I get to sample a variety of different authors. There's Ian Tregillis, Max Gladstone, Cassandra Rose Clark, and Lindsay Smith, all of whom have fantastic reputations in their own genres and fields. Some of whom I don't really engage with very much. For instance, Lindsay Smith is primarily a YA author who I wouldn't necessarily read her stuff. Max Gladstone, I am not very familiar with his work. Cassandra Rose Clark is somebody who I'm just starting to really get to know. And her works tend to air on New Adult, which is a little bit less common for me. And so it's really fun to get to see these authors in a new context, especially considering that they're working together to create this cohesive story. And I really like this because while the story comes together in a very clear and concise manner, right, the overarching tale I think is very well done, the individual stories the individual like 30-page chapters, they're very cool because you can see the differences in each author's kind of writing and approach to the story. It's cohesive in that it doesn't feel like I'm jumping from story to story, but it's distinct in that I can tell that there's a different writer. I can tell that they have a slightly different tone in the way that they narrate things, or a slightly different turn in the way that they have the dialogue. Not so much that it's jarring and takes you out of the story, but enough to feel like I'm actually getting a taste of a variety of different authors. It gets so much better as it goes along. It reminds me kind of a comic in that it can be a little hectic at the start, but as you get familiar with the characters and with the plot, it becomes much more fluid. The story kind of comes together in a way that maybe at first it didn't seem like it would. I really found the plot to be engaging and really likable. In a way, it reminds me a little bit of a radio play, if that makes sense. Like, I would love to listen to this on audiobook, or they do have an audio reading of it, and I think that would be fantastic. Not only because the story tone, right, that like 1970s Cold War era story really lends itself to that kind of format, but also because I think all of the authors really lend themselves in their writing to audio, right? There's a very conscious focus in the way that they are presenting the information to really kind of tap into this tone, to tap into this style of storytelling. That, at least for me, it's really reminiscent of those like really suspenseful kind of weekly stories, particularly, like I said, those of the radio play, or those of the really classic like Flash Gordon kind of stories, where it leaves you on a really deep cliffhanger just to pick up the next time, and it feels like you're right back into the action. I've really enjoyed reading these. If you have read anything by Serial Box, please let me know. You should also be keeping an eye out, because I'm planning on doing an interview with one of the publicists from Serial Box, talking about this new format and what kind of challenges it presents, as well as a giveaway, which will be my first ever giveaway. I'm super excited. So keep an eye out for those. They'll be on my blog. I'll let you know when they're up. And I hope you're having a fantastic reading week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.